Jorinda and Jorindel, a bedtime story. Long ago, deep in a dark forest, there stood an old castle made of gray stone. The trees around it grew so thick and tall that their branches twisted together like locked fingers. Moss covered the castle walls like a green blanket. In this lonely place lived a witch. This witch had strange powers. During the evening hours, she could change her shape. Sometimes she became a large owl with yellow eyes that glowed like lanterns. Other times, she crept through the woods as a black cat with fur as dark as coal. But when night fell completely, she always returned to her true form, a bent old woman with long, crooked fingers. The witch had a terrible spell around her castle. If any young man walked within 100 steps of her home, he would freeze like ice. He could not move his arms, his legs, or even blink his eyes. He stayed frozen until the witch came to free him. But if a young woman came near, something worse happened. The witch would turn her into a bird and lock her in a cage. Inside the castle hung 700 cages, each holding a beautiful bird that was once a girl. In a village near the forest lived a girl named Jorinda. She had long brown hair that fell like a waterfall down her back, and her eyes sparkled like stars in a clear night sky. A shepherd boy named Jorindel loved her very much. His heart beat faster whenever he saw her smile. They planned to marry soon. One evening, they walked together into the forest to be alone. The air felt cool and fresh. Jorindel held Jorinda's hand as they walked between the tall trees. "We must be careful," Jorindel said. "We cannot go near the witch's castle." "I know," Jorinda replied softly. The evening grew darker. The last bit of light painted the sky in shades of purple and pink. Birds called to each other from the branches above. Jorinda and Jorindel sat down on the soft grass to rest. They felt strange, sad, and worried, though they did not know why. It felt like something bad was going to happen. They had walked farther than they thought. When they looked around to find their way home, they were lost. The trees all looked the same. Which path should they take? The light faded quickly. Jorindel looked behind them and gasped. Through the dark bushes, he could see old stone walls. They had sat down right next to the witch's castle. His face turned white with fear. His hands began to shake. Jorinda started to sing a quiet song. The dove sang from the willow tree. Sad was he, sad was he. He cried for his love, who could not be free. Sad was he. Suddenly her voice stopped. Jorindel turned to look at her. Where Jorinda had been sitting, there was now a small brown bird, a nightingale. The bird opened its beak and made a sad sound. Jug, jug. Then an owl flew down from the trees. Its eyes burned like red fire. It flew around them 3 times, crying out, "Tu-woo, tu-woo, tu-woo." Jorindel tried to move, but he could not. His body was frozen like stone. He could not cry. He could not speak. He could not lift even one finger. The last light disappeared. Complete darkness came. The owl flew into a bush. A moment later, the witch appeared. She was thin and pale. Her eyes bulged out like a frog's. Her nose and chin were so long they almost touched each other. She wore a ragged black dress. The witch mumbled strange words under her breath. She picked up the nightingale and held it in her bony hand. Then she walked away, carrying the bird that was Jorinda. Poor Jorindel could only watch. He could not help. He could not move. The witch was gone, and Jorinda was gone. After a while, the witch returned. She sang in a scratchy, terrible voice, while the prisoner's in her cage, and the spell is on the stage. You must stay, you must stay. When the magic holds her tight, through the dark and lonely night, you're away, far away. Suddenly, Jorindel could move again. He fell to his knees and begged the witch, "Please, give me back my Jorinda." The witch just laughed, a harsh, cruel sound like breaking sticks. "You will never see her again," she said. Then she disappeared into the darkness. Jorindel cried. He prayed. He felt so sad he thought his heart would break. But nothing helped. "What will I do?" he whispered to the empty forest. He could not go back to his village. How could he face his family and friends without Jorinda? So he walked to a different village far away. There, he found work taking care of sheep. Every time, he walked around the forest near the witch's castle, staying just far enough away to be safe. He hoped to see or hear something, any sign of Jorinda. But there was nothing, just silence and darkness. Many months passed. Then one night, Jorindel had a dream. In his dream, he found a beautiful flower. It had purple petals as soft as silk. In the center of the flower sat a pearl, round and white and glowing. In his dream, he picked the flower and carried it to the witch's castle. Everything he touched with the flower became free from the witch's magic. And there, at last, he found his Jorinda alive and well. When Jorindel woke up, his heart raced with hope. He had to find that flower. He searched everywhere. He looked on hills and in valleys. He looked by streams and under trees. For 8 whole days, he found nothing. But on the 9th morning, just as the stars were fading, he saw it, a purple flower growing by itself on a hill. In its center sat a large dewdrop that sparkled like the pearl from his dream. With shaking hands, Jorindel picked the flower. He held it carefully and began walking toward the witch's castle. He walked without stopping, through the evening and all through the night. At last, he reached the castle. He took a deep breath and walked closer and closer. 20 steps, 10 steps, right up to the door. The magic did not freeze him. The flower protected him. Jorindel touched the door with the flower. The door flew open with a loud creak. He walked through a courtyard where weeds grew between broken stones. He could hear birds singing, hundreds of birds, all singing sad songs. Finally, he came to a large room. There sat the witch, surrounded by 700 cages hanging from the ceiling. Each cage held a bird. The birds sang and sang, their voices filling the air with music and sorrow. When the witch saw Jorindel, her face turned red with anger. She screamed at him and reached out her clawed hands, but she could not get closer than 2 steps away. The purple flower kept her back like an invisible wall. Jorindel looked at all the cages. So many nightingales. They all looked the same. Which one was Jorinda? How would he ever find her? While he was thinking, he noticed the witch grab one cage and run toward the door, trying to escape. Jorindel chased after her. He touched the cage with his purple flower. Light flashed. The cage disappeared, and there stood Jorinda, as beautiful as ever. She threw her arms around Jorindel's neck. Tears of happiness ran down both their faces. Jorindel touched every cage in the room with his flower. One by one, the birds changed back into girls. They laughed and cried and hugged each other. The witch screamed and screamed, but she could do nothing. Her magic was broken. Jorindel took Jorinda's hand, and they walked out of the castle together. They returned to their village, where they were married. They lived happily together for many, many years, and all the other girls who had been trapped also went home to their families and lived happily too. The old castle stood empty after that. The witch was never seen again, and deep in the forest, purple flowers still grow, reminding everyone that love is stronger than any magic.